Okay, we're going to begin the second panel, and when Professor Dunn and I were thinking about hosting this conversation, we were excited to hear from experts, as we heard from earlier this morning, but we were extremely excited to hear from athletes. And so we have some distinguished athlete alums from OSU who are going to share their perspective on this very important and controversial issue. We have joining us on the panel today Lawrence Funderburke. He is the founder and executive director of the Lawrence Funderburke Youth Organization. He is a retired NBA player, a three-time All-Big Ten performer, and you can find information on him. He's also an author of 3 books, Hook Me Up Playa, The Triangle Formula of Success, and the forthcoming book, Socio-Psychonomics, How Social Classes Think, Act, and behave financially in the 21st century. You can reach him and his foundation at fundermaxfitness.com. We also have joining us John Holman, who is the head football coach, the Buckeye local high school, a Buckeye defensive tackle from 2011 to 2015. Marscilla Packer, the assistant athletic director at the Columbus School for Girls, the director of the Girls Ohio Youth Basketball. She was a Lady Buckeye and a guard on the basketball team from 2004 to 2008. We have Shawn Springs, who is the CEO of Windpact, sports commentator for Comcast SportsNet and NBC Sports. He is an NFL veteran and a former Buckeye, Ohio State cornerback from 1994 to 1996. Kelly Trent is the LPGA head professional and a former golf coach. She is an Ohio State University alum. And we have Kristin Watt, who is a partner at Vorys, Sater, and Seymour and Pease, LLP. She is the voice of the Lady Buckeyes, a former forward for the Lady Buckeyes from 1981 to 1985. And Maurice Claret, former running back for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Our moderator is Jim Trelevin, president and CEO of VS Strategy Group and professor of business at the University of Illinois.
Well, this panel, I think, is really important. We've heard a lot of ideas about and a great outline of the issues that exist today in college sports. But the people that are most affected are the athletes, and so we're very fortunate to have the panel today representing the athletes. But I want to make one quick plug for, what was the term you used, Kelly? Tag-along sports? Coattail sports, okay. It came up earlier. There are 1,000 NCAA college members of the NCAA. There are over half a million NCAA athletes representing all 3 divisions, a variety of sports, and I want to make sure that those are considered. And Andy Zimbalist made a great plug for the value of those sports as part of the educational process. I don't want to narrow the discussion about college athletics to the fact that athletics is, I think as Joe described it, as hard work where you can get injured and it's terrible. Most of those 500,000 athletes play the sport for the love of the sport and for the education they get through playing that sport. And we have all of those types of sports represented, so it's going to be a great panel. What I'd like the panel members to do, in addition to their individual remarks, is if they could comment on some of the suggestions that were made in the first panel. There were a portfolio of suggestions that ranged from pretty drastic changes to the way sports is administered, particularly in upper-level Division I schools, such as Ohio State, and some tweaking to the system that might make a lot of sense. So I think if you could all respond to some of those ideas, that would be extremely valuable. And in the interest of plugging those sports, Joe mentioned earlier that 66,000, and because of the weather, I think it'll be closer to 100,000 people will show up for the spring game tomorrow. The NCAA Men's Gymnastics Championships is taking place here at St. John Arena this weekend. It starts this afternoon. My son was a gymnast here at Ohio State. It ends tomorrow night with the finals tomorrow night, and it does not conflict with the spring game, so you can go to both. So with that, we're going to go left to right on the panel, and first up will be Lawrence Funderburke.
I thought it was a very enlightening discussion. A lot of points were made. And obviously, the whole debate of economic fairness, when we take that position, it's very divisive. I'm of the position of student empowerment. That's my position. That's how I am. That's how I've always lived my life. But I think some points that were made in terms of what do you do? How do you make it fair, or how do you try to level the playing field, I guess? I like the idea of, health insurance, so income replacement. I have 5 different points that I have that I will share when I speak, but I think there are some things that can be done to protect athletes if they get hurt or if they want to continue their education. I know the university already has it where if you here at this university, you leave school without a degree, you can actually come back and finish your education. So that's kind of a moot point. That is already there. The problem is very few athletes, as some have indicated, take academics seriously. And I think that's the issue, and that's going to be something that I jump into when I get going.
Next up, John Holman.
I'd like to say, excuse my voice, I woke up this morning, thought I was going to be singing, but I guess not. But I like to agree. I think Matt brought the issue up about once they graduate, allowing them to have some type of funding. So I thought maybe the school makes crazy amount of money, not just Ohio State. I think I know when I was a student here, played football here, worked 4 jobs and went to school as well. So you probably wondering, how in the heck did you do that? Not a lot of sleep. I made a lot of sacrifices at the end of the day. And ultimately, my grades suffered and my performance suffered on the field. But at the same time, I realized that I loved the school and I wanted to do everything I could. But he made up a point that once you graduate, maybe they offer students, maybe $10,000 to $15,000 per year that goes into a savings account, which allows them, once they graduate, maybe accumulate to $60,000 or $70,000. Once they graduate, they're allowed to go into that account and take that money out, because most of the student athletes, once they graduate, are either going back home to wherever they're from and it's nothing there, or going to the NFL, but the majority of them are going back home. And they got an opportunity to come to a great university like the State University, go to Alabama or such and such schools or whatever, and at the end of the day, they get nothing. So I think having some system where once they graduate, it's a win-win situation. The school keeps their graduation well. The students, athletes are allowed to have money as far as starting their own business or being successful once they get done graduating from college.
Thank you, John. Marcilla?
Well, the first panel gave me a lot to think about. I was actually sitting there like, wow, maybe I should change my stance. But I think being a former women's basketball player, I had a lot of different experiences than what men's basketball and obviously football players may have had. Academics were always very important on our team. You were looked down upon if you were getting below a 3.0, and we never ever considered getting paid to play the sport. It was enough just to be getting our education paid for. But hearing stories like this, you working so many jobs in schools definitely made me rethink some things and how we could probably make some adjustments. But what comes to mind for me is not just football and basketball, but the other sports that we have here, especially at Ohio State, and how they would be affected by that. I don't think a lot of women's basketball players are thinking of going professional when they're in college. They're thinking about their education, what their opportunities that may come after that. And I think that would be a big factor in if this did happen, if athletes did start getting paid to play.